When you first get into medical school, the first semester is a whirlwind. You are so excited to finally get to study the stuff that really matters to you. And I was just like every other medical student. I was just so excited. And one of the things you're most excited for, which is sort of the epitome of that first semester, is your gross anatomy class. And I went in there, and you are assigned a lab group, and it's very scientific. It's basically alphabetical. So I was fortunate that I was assigned Joe and David and Madhavi all had our last names like I did, and thank goodness they were the best people that I probably have ever met in my life as a team, and they helped me through what ends up being a really challenging semester. I thought that I was going to be a champion of gross anatomy. I was good at memorization. I was very visual, and I thought I was going to love it. And you go into your first gross anatomy, and you walk into this big room where there's about 4 or 5 professors there, and there's a table where eventually there'll be a specimen that they will give you a short lecture, and then you break into your pods. And that first lecture, instead, they just told us how lucky we were that we had the privilege to learn in this setting. They reminded us the very sensitive nature of what we were going to be experiencing. And they instructed us that most of these people and the bodies that we were seeing had come through generous donations that the people and their families had decided to donate their bodies to medical education. A very small percentage of our bodies came from people who were unclaimed, and it was a very small percentage. After hearing all that lecture and knowing what we had to do the first day, Madhavi and David and Joe and I walk into our pod where there's a bunch of tables, and there is our table with a body that's wrapped up in a plastic bag, a zipper, and we unzip our body, and then there's another layer which is like moist towels that you take off to keep the body soft. And he was a very thin old man. I remember looking at him and seeing that he had a port where his chemotherapy had been infused. He had lost all this weight. He was so thin. And then we unwrapped his face, and I swear, it was like looking at my grandfather. It looked just like my grandfather. And I could not get that out of my head. And so instead of being as excited as I was, I really took a huge backseat to the learning process. And the way it's supposed to work is there's 4 of us, and we're supposed to rotate. And so at any given lab day, one person would be basically in charge of the scalpel, and the other person would have the lab notebook and kind of be dictating, okay, we're looking for this, and you need to go through this layer of skin and layer of fascia, and the other 2 on that particular day are observers. Well, I took the observational route every single day. I would pass whenever it was my turn to get my hand on the scalpel. I just couldn't. I couldn't get it out of my head, and I would wake up in the middle of the night, and my hair would have touched my face, and my hair by 2 or 3 labs was soaked with formalin. And I would smell the formalin in the middle of the night, and all I could think of, for some reason I had in my head that this man had died alone, that he was kind and wonderful like my grandfather. He hadn't want his body donated. He didn't have family there, and I couldn't rework the narrative. Luckily for me, the professor who was in our pod, this amazing man, Dr. Marino, he saw that I was struggling. And he approached me and said, what can we do for you? This is just one of many emotional hurdles that you're gonna have to go through medical school and residency and practicing medicine. And I just kind of described what was going on. And he sent me across the street to the hospital to talk to a counselor. And I am not against counseling. And perhaps in the long game, this circuitous route would have worked. But here's what happened for the 2 sessions that I did sit through. This counselor asked me, what was going on. I said, I don't know why, but I have my grandfather in place of this man, and I can't not feel sad for him. And he said, well, what do you like about your grandfather? What do you like about your grandfather? And I told him all the qualities of my grandfather. And then he said, okay, well, let's rework this narrative that you have in your head. Let's say this man is not particularly funny or smart. Maybe he beats up on his wife. And maybe he's mean to his children and he kicks dogs. Does that help at all? No, That does not help at all. So I made an appointment with Dr. Marino's office hours again. I said, I don't think there's enough time for me and this counselor to work through what I would need to work through to get to the end of this. So he said, and very smartly, he said, Stephanie, this is a gift. It is your job now not to waste the gift that was given to you. You need to figure it out. And so I did. I found out that maybe I couldn't be the scalpel person, but I could be the book person. And with the help of my partners, I got closer and closer. I did well in anatomy. I even found that the best time for me to study was to go in on weekends by myself where it was quieter, and to study by myself in the anatomy lab and do the dissection, not the cutting, but the observing by myself. And I did well in anatomy. And at the end of the school year, all of the med students from around the country, or from around the city, are invited to join a memorial service with the families that donated these bodies. And I went with my partners in my lab, and I was very thankful, and I felt like I hopefully had used the gift they had given me. And I think we, as a group of anatomy partners, were hoping that the family in our head was there, and that family did understand that we had really benefited, and that we were super thankful for the gift they had given us in our medical education. Thank you.